Hey guys, Jared here, and I have a very special video for you today talking about this game right here, Dragon Quest IX. Believe it or not, but Dragon Quest IX was released 10 years ago this month in Japan. I can't believe it's been 10 years since Dragon Quest IX. It feels like it was only yesterday that I had imported this. Now this particular one here is the North American version. All my Japanese imports are currently in storage, but I actually imported this 10 years ago, and on our old website I actually did like an import review, and I remember that, you know, no one was really covering the game. There was a couple of people that, you know, like the big sites that were talking a little bit about, you know, this new Dragon Quest that came out, and it actually was released in North America and Europe about a year after. So technically, next year in 2020, that'll be the 10-year anniversary of Dragon Quest IX in North America. But the way I see it is, Dragon Quest is really a Japanese series, and it's been a Japanese series forever and ever and ever, and I know that they're slowly changing that over time, and hopefully within the next, say, 10 years, like all Dragon Quest games will be released in North America. That's my hope anyway. I really hope that happens. But anyways, I thought it would be fun today to just reminisce, talk about my experience with Dragon Quest IX, maybe just talk in general. I'm gonna mix this up with some gameplay of Dragon Quest IX. I've captured through obviously emulation. There's no real other way I can do this that makes it look good. So let me know if you actually like this sort of format, because I'm gonna just continue to talk and I'll just splice over the footage just so you guys get to see some of the game while I'm talking like this, like a big goofball. So the biggest thing that I remember was actually leading up to the release of Dragon Quest IX. So when Dragon Quest IX was announced, and there was a lot of rumors that Level 5 was going to be involved again, and if you don't know, Level 5 made Dragon Quest VIII, I almost said Warrior, and that was a huge game, man. I also imported that one. I should have actually done a 10-year anniversary for that one, because that was a big deal. When Dragon Quest VIII came out, it really was a huge, huge deal. It's really because it was the first 3D Dragon Quest game, and it was a big gamble that Square-Enix had taken at the time, and it really paid off. In my opinion, Dragon Quest VIII is one of the best in the series. I love that. I love the music, battle system, I love the story, I love all of it. And when the North American version was released, it was a complete overhaul over the Japanese release. The menus were different, it had an orchestrated soundtrack and voice acting, and it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And so when Dragon Quest IX was originally announced, I was shocked when we found out that it was going to be for the Nintendo DS. I didn't know what to expect, and I won't lie, because I like doing these videos and being honest with you guys. I was very disappointed. When it was first announced that it was coming to the DS, I was unbelievably disappointed, because Dragon Quest VIII was amazing. It was absolutely amazing, and I was like, what? Like, you're taking my favorite, like, RPG series, one of my favorite series, period, and you're downgrading it now? I don't follow this. Like, all throughout the Famicom, Super Famicom, into the PlayStation and the PlayStation 2, it was getting like better and better, you know, graphics and audiovisual presentation, storytelling, and the whole thing was just getting better and better and better. And I was like, what the hell? Like, what's wrong with you, man? With Square-Enix. I didn't understand this. And the funny thing is with Dragon Quest IX, going back now and looking at it and playing it again, I'm actually playing it right now, so it's perfect timing for this video. And I'm looking and I'm like, it was a great game. It really was. It was a really, really great game, but it was so clearly designed for the Japanese audience in every single way. So the basic concept of Dragon Quest IX, and don't worry, I'm not going to talk about story spoilers, okay? I'll obviously be spoiling some elements of the game in terms of gameplay features and stuff like that, but I'm not going to talk about the story. So in terms of, and why I say that the game was developed, like really designed, not developed, but designed for the Japanese audience, is because of the StreetPass features. People don't remember this, really, for some reason, but Dragon Quest IX was the first game to use StreetPass in the way that we use it now. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically where you have your DS, 3DS, whatever, and you walk by someone and you transmit data back and forth. And this was a really big deal. This was a really, excuse me, my throat today is a little, but this was a really, really big deal because it had, it allowed you to transmit from one player to another player different information. And in the context of Dragon Quest IX, this means that you were able to basically trade different, quest lines. You were able to trade different, what is it called, hotel guests. You could link up and trade different gear. And I keep saying trading, it's not trading. But as you would pass each other, certain information would go from one system to another system. And that would allow you to populate your hotel. And your hotel had all kinds of different features that you could utilize. There was DLC for the game. There's DLC quests, DLC stores that allowed you to purchase unique items that were only available at that particular point in time. Now, the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection is long gone, but you can still access this stuff with a save editor. Everything that's actually on the game itself that doesn't make sense. Everything that was on the DLC is actually on the game card itself. The DLC simply unlocked what was already on the card, which is fantastic news because with a save editor, all you have to do is essentially go into the save file and just say like, okay, activate these quests, you like purchase these different items and so on and so forth. And that's really awesome. Really, really awesome. So anyways, going back to the StreetPass stuff. So one of the reasons why I say like this was really clearly designed for Japan is that the DS was in everyone's pocket. Everyone had a DS in Japan. Like seriously, I'm not exaggerating. Like a crazy amount of people. The system sold so unbelievably well, it was nuts. And Dragon Quest IX is actually the highest selling Dragon Quest game of all time. And almost all of those copies are from Japan. Like they're all sold in Japan. And that means that those StreetPass features, like you could just walk out of your place, walk down the street, and you're likely tagged 3 different people. So when you get back, go into your hotel, you'd have 3 different guests. And these things would keep unlocking, more and more little goodies for you. But in North America, that feature was not as useful, so shall we say, or not as prevalent. Because, yes, the DS sold extremely well, but Dragon Quest itself was not a huge seller here. Even to this day, it's still not a giant seller. And so that one feature really wasn't as utilized as it could have been, which is unfortunate. I would have loved to have experienced this in Japan. Now, as with all Dragon Quest games, I purchased and played through the Japanese version. But all these sort of like StreetPass features, I entirely missed out on. Like seriously, I missed out completely on that. I was never able to like maximize the hotel with, what is it, like 30 guests I think you needed or something like that in order to keep leveling it up. It's been a long time. I haven't messed around with those features, so if I'm mistaken with any of that, I apologize. This is just from memory, and I'm doing a single take here because I want to show you the passion, right? Like, yeah! And anyway, one of the other things that was really, really big with Dragon Quest IX was the ability to play with other players. And again, this sucked, man, for me, because here I am, I have Dragon Quest IX, I'm sitting at home and I'm like, oh man, this is epic, right? Like, this is epic. And I can't play with anyone. And this hurt, okay? So this really hurt the experience for me in a lot of ways. I know for a lot of you guys, you were able to play with your buddies at home, and it like must have been an incredible experience. I never experienced that with Dragon Quest IX. I did experience some of the multiplayer, but I just never experienced the whole thing. So here I am, I'm playing a game that clearly is designed for a large concentration of people in confined areas for StreetPass features that I don't have access to. Then I don't have access to any multiplayer features whatsoever because I'm on the other side of the planet playing this game in Japanese. Then you go, like on top of all of that, you have the fact that you have 3 generic party members. Now, I don't know how many of you are huge fans of the Dragon Quest series that are watching this, or if you're new to the series, but this was the first time that had been done with generic party members since Dragon Quest III. Dragon Quest III was the only other one up to that point in time that had these sort of generic characters. And again, coming off of Dragon Quest VIII, I was like, ah, man. And I hadn't played Dragon Quest III in a long, long time, so I didn't really think about that, right? So to me, I'm playing this and I'm like, oh man, I miss the characters, right? I miss the interaction between the characters. Now these are just 3 faceless nobodies that are following me around, and it's not that great. It's okay, but it's nothing spectacular. But the game grew on me very, very, very quickly. Very quickly. I remember playing through and I was like, I don't like this. You went to that hotel that I'm talking about, and which was Quester's Rest, and you'd basically create these characters that you wanted. And then once you got to the Altrade's Abbey, you were able to switch classes and stuff like that. And I was happy about that, okay? And that's the thing I want to mention. I was exceedingly happy that that the class system was brought back from Dragon Quest VII, and I really, really liked it. It's an excellent system. And again, this is not a review or anything like that. This is just 10 years later. It's unbelievable. And I remember just getting totally enthralled in that. I spent hundreds of hours leveling up the characters, and I kept my team, and I sort of thought of different stories of how they would have come together, just cheesy stuff like that. But what I really liked was the small contained stories. I thought that was really, really cool. I also liked the fact that you could get some of this DLC, and that was available, that I could download some of this DLC. I could get grottos, which are these little mini dungeons that had really powerful bosses, and if you took down those bosses, you could get some really wicked items. And I thought that was awesome. And then of course there's the quest line, and this was so funny to me because Dragon Quest IX introduces the quest line to the Dragon Quest series, and I thought that was utterly ridiculous, hilarious, no? That you have a series called Dragon Quest, and you had never really had a quest line. It was just one story that you played through. And 9 introduced that, and that's still being used to this very day. Dragon Quest XI has it, and even the remake of Dragon Quest VIII, they introduced quest lines into that, which I thought was really cool. And I think moving forward, it's a brilliant idea because it allows you to keep track of different things you can do, fetch quests, monster takedowns, whatever. And I loved that. And then when the DLC started to come out with post-game quests, I keep wanting to say warrior every time I say quest. And anyway, every time they would do this, and you'd get more and more and more quests, I loved it. It was like a game that would not end. And so with the Japanese version, like I say, I spent hundreds of hours, seriously, hundreds and hundreds of hours into this game, because at that point in time, I had no idea if it was even going to get released in North America. But it did. And unfortunately, because of that, I never really, interestingly enough, got into this version of the game, the North American version of Dragon Quest IX. I played once, and I only went through the game and to pick up some of the story elements I may have missed or things like that, and that was it. I never really delved into any of the DLC or like anything. I just didn't do anything with the North American version of Dragon Quest IX, like very, very little. And I thought that was really, really interesting. It really was interesting. And going back for footage for this video, and I'm thinking of maybe even doing another review for it, like, you know, maybe like 10 years later type of thing. I haven't decided what I'm going to do. Maybe the footage will just be for this. But whatever the case may be, I'm like, wow, you know, this really was a really great game. And it's unfortunate that I missed essentially the soul of Dragon Quest IX because I didn't have access to anyone around me to play the game, which was really, really unfortunate. And Stephen and I have spoken a lot about this in the last couple of years, saying how, you know, it's one of those games where we would have had a blast playing together, but I very rarely play the North American version of Dragon Quest games. It's just what happens. It's like Dragon Quest XI. I have not played Dragon Quest XI in English yet. I haven't. The first time I'm going to go through the game in English will be with the Switch release because it is a worldwide release. So I'm going to, obviously, I'll jump on the North American version. But I'm like, you know, I missed out, you know? And as a really hardcore Dragon Quest fan, that kind of sucks that I kind of missed out on this. And I watched the Dragon Quest IX live stream, and it was really cool. They were reminiscing about, you know, like taking your DS and going into Metro and then going home and seeing you had like 45 different guests like that you pinged off of or you know, more or whatever, talking about the multiplayer sessions and stuff. And I was like, wow, you know, this would have been awesome. This would have been absolutely awesome to experience this, but unfortunately that just never happened, and I never did get to really truly experience that. Now, something that I did experience that I loved was the fact that it was the first Dragon Quest game where your clothes would change with every single piece of item that you every piece of gear that you would equip. So this could mean like gloves, it could mean hats, it could mean chest pieces, leg pieces, it could mean shoes, accessories, and so on and so forth. And that was, to me, absolutely awesome. I to this day, even playing through, just like I'm playing through the game right now just because I think it's so cool. I just think it's so cool. And, you know, I look and I'm like, man, that was pretty damn awesome. And the only other game that went to that degree was Dragon Quest X. And I've got to give Dragon Quest IX kudos that it would lead to Dragon Quest X. And anyone that is a fan of Dragon Quest IX, I'm telling you right now, you would absolutely lose your mind over Dragon Quest X because it's essentially the evolution of 9. It's taking 9, everything that 9 did, quest line, the multiplayer aspect, the short little condensed stories that are they're basically self-contained little stories. So you'll go to a village and there's something going on at the village, but the whole story sort of like wraps around that. Yeah, you have this larger branching storyline, but I really liked how you had these really deep personal stories at like these little tiny little like areas. I like that. I really did like that. 8 did something like, well, most of them, not just 8, but like most of the Dragon Quests do things like that where there's something going on in a village or whatever. But I just thought in 9 it was taken to the next level, and 10 goes even further. 10 is nuts with that, where like you'll almost cry. Some of these stories are so powerful. And so you don't necessarily miss your teammates as much as I thought you would. And that was, I think, the biggest takeaway. So, like, wrapping this all up for me, 10 years of Dragon Quest IX, you know, like thinking back 10 years. Was I disappointed at the beginning? Absolutely. I'm not going to lie about that. Absolutely, I was disappointed. I felt that it was like a downscaled version of Dragon Quest. But when I got it, when I actually got my hands on my import copy, and plunked that into my DS, I was like, this is a great game. And I reviewed it. I forget, I gave it like 9.5, 9.6, something like that, because it's a great game. It's an absolutely amazing game. And I played that for months, man, non-stop, leveling constantly, changing classes, leveling those, and just keep going and going and going, playing through DLC and everything like that. But unfortunately, like I said, there was a lot of stuff with that Dragon Quest that I missed, and it's unfortunate because it's gone for good. And moving forward now, there's a lot of things that I wonder, like, where would they take Dragon Quest IX? Because Dragon Quest IX is not the type of game to experience the way I experienced it. It wasn't really made to be played alone. It was made to be played with friends. And I'm not sure the best way about going about doing that. I'm not entirely sure. There's talks of a mobile release, there's talks of a Switch port, there's talks of, there's talks of all of this stuff. And they even mentioned in the live stream, they were jokingly talking about that, like, get on that. But they did bring up some very interesting aspects, such as the fact of, like, well, how does one actually go and do this? Because we can't really have StreetPass features unless we do something with mobile. If we do something with console, that's not really going to work. And then you've got, the multiplayer aspect. Do we just make this like online multiplayer? Like, just leave it like that? If that's the case, then you're going to start to be like, okay, then what about Dragon Quest X? Because Dragon Quest X, I understand, is an MMO. It's different. But still, there's going to be people like me that'll be like, oh man, this is the ultimate tease. So anyways, that's a little bit of a sort of just, I don't know, my thoughts and my memories of Dragon Quest IX. It's the only Dragon Quest game that I never got to sort of experience as it was intended to be played. And, looking back, I'm a little disappointed with that. It's the one time where playing through the Japanese version first kind of screwed me over, because my interest just wasn't there for the North American one. Why do I want to play the same thing all the way through, put 100 hours again? It doesn't make any sense. But if I would have been able to experience that with the multiplayer aspect, I think it could have been really something special. But in the end, Dragon Quest IX is certainly a fantastic Dragon Quest. And I know I've had a couple of requests for people to say, why don't you put, like, what are your top Dragon Quest games? Maybe like top 11, you know what I mean? Like, put them all in order. And I think that's a fun challenge for me to do something like that. So I think I'm going to actually work on a video like that and see where this one places. Because on the top of my head right now, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure where I would place Dragon Quest IX in the whole, in the whole series. Anyways, what about you? What about you guys? Did you really enjoy Dragon Quest IX? For some of you, I'm sure it was your first Dragon Quest game. Do you still play it today? If there was a remake, where would you like to see it? And what would be some of the features that you guys would like to see? So that's it. By all means, share some memories of Dragon Quest IX. It's a great game. No matter what, it's a great game, and it's part of an incredible series. And with that, I shall say, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this format, and I'll catch you all in the next